It's a haunting thought, one that usually creeps in long after they're gone, when the photos are deleted, when the messages stop, when silence is all that's left. You sit there, replaying it all. The laughter, the late night conversations, the way they looked at you like you were their entire world. And yet, something never quite felt right, as if deep down, you were performing a role. Not fully yourself, just a projection of who they needed you to be. You smiled when it hurt. You stayed silent when you wanted to scream, because a part of you knew if you stopped being the fantasy, they'd leave. And maybe they did. But here's the truth that hurts before it heals. They didn't love you, not completely. They loved the story you fit into, the shape you filled, the unspoken hope that maybe you would be the one to fix what's been broken inside them for years. But that's not your job, and that's not love. Real love begins when the masks fall off, when the illusion ends, when you can say, "This is who I am," and still be held, not for what you represent, but for what you are. This isn't just heartbreak, it's awakening. And if you're here, listening, maybe your awakening has already begun. You were light in their shadows. You were freedom in their routine. You were something they hadn't allowed themselves to become. Maybe you're the type who speaks your mind, who walks into a room with quiet confidence. Maybe you're the kind who dances in the rain, who cries without shame, who lives unapologetically raw. And they admired it because they didn't know how to be it. They were drawn to you like a moth to flame, not because of who you were, but because of what you symbolized. You awakened a version of themselves they secretly longed for, a courage, a voice, a life unlived. In the beginning, it felt like magic. The connection was intense. They praised you, put you on a pedestal, said things like, "You're everything I've been looking for." But that wasn't love. That was unconscious need disguised as passion. Because when love is built on projection, it's never truly about you. It's about the hunger inside them. And that hunger, once satisfied or threatened, turns cold. You start noticing it, how their eyes lose the sparkle, how their presence feels distant. One day they wake up, and you're no longer enough. Not because you changed, but because the fantasy faded. And it hurts deeply. You gave so much of yourself. You thought it was real. But now you're left wondering, did they ever truly see me? Here's where transformation begins. You realize that you are not a cure. You're not a missing piece in someone else's puzzle. You are a whole, living, breathing human with flaws, with beauty, with a heart that deserves more than to be someone's emotional crutch. And the next time you feel that magnetic pull, you'll ask yourself, am I being loved for who I am or for what I represent? Because real love doesn't place you on a pedestal. It meets you eye to eye. It doesn't chase what's missing. It cherishes what's real. And once you learn that, you'll never settle for less again. The moment they saw you, something ancient stirred. It wasn't logic. It wasn't reason. It was recognition. Carl Jung called it the anima and animus, unconscious inner figures of the opposite gender we carry from childhood, culture, and myth. You didn't just remind them of someone. They were wired to find you. And when you appeared, they didn't just feel attracted. They felt home. You weren't a person to them. You were a symbol, a living embodiment of a blueprint they'd unknowingly carried for years. That's why the connection felt instant, overwhelming, sacred. That's why they said, "You're everything I've dreamed of," because in their mind, you were. But here's the twist. They weren't falling for you. They were falling for their own story. You just happen to wear the face. It's not your fault. You didn't ask to be a fantasy. But when someone projects their deepest unconscious image onto you, they don't truly see you. They see through you. At first, it felt beautiful, even divine. The way they hung on your every word, touched your hand like it meant something eternal. But slowly it became heavy, confusing, unfair. Because when the real you began to show, your quirks, your shadows, your truth, they felt betrayed, as if you'd broken a silent promise you never agreed to keep. They became distant, critical, cold, and you were left holding the pieces of a love you thought was real. But here's what's real. It was never about you. It was about them trying to make peace with a part of themselves. You were a mirror, and when the reflection cracked, so did the illusion. And yet, this pain can be your portal. Ask yourself, what patterns do I fall for? Who have I projected onto? This is where love transforms, from a stage of unconscious scripts to a space of real connection. When we see each other not as fantasy, but as flawed, complex, beautiful human beings. You don't need to fit anyone's inner myth. You deserve to be seen as you are. And that kind of love, that's not fate. That's freedom. You didn't do anything wrong. You were still you. Still showing up. Still loving. Still trying. But something in their eyes shifted. From wonder to weariness. From awe to annoyance. And then it hit you. They were grieving something you never promised. They weren't mourning you. They were mourning the fantasy of you. When you stopped being their dream, you became a mirror they couldn't face. Your flaws were no longer charming. They were flaws. Your differences weren't exciting anymore. They were too much. And suddenly, everything that once made them love you became reasons to leave. This is the collapse Jung warned us about. The moment when projection meets reality, when the ideal cracks under the weight of your humanity. It's brutal. It feels personal, but it isn't. They didn't betray you. They betrayed the image they created of you and blamed you for breaking it. And yet, that very crack is where the light comes in. Because when illusions fall, truth has a chance to rise. You begin to see they didn't love you, and maybe you didn't love them either, not fully. You loved the version of yourself that existed in their eyes. And now that version is gone, you're left with just you. And that's where healing begins. In the wreckage of the unreal, in the silence after the storm, when all that's left is your voice asking, what do I need now? What do I deserve? And from that question, you rise. After the illusions crumble, there's a strange quiet. No more euphoric highs, no more gut-wrenching confusion, just space, painful, peaceful space, for truth to emerge. You start to see clearly how often you've mistaken intensity for intimacy, how many times you've called projection fate, how long you've chased the feeling of being chosen instead of being seen. And now you're done pretending. You stop asking, why didn't they love me? And start asking, why did I give so much of myself to be loved? This is the awakening Carl Jung spoke of, not just intellectual, but emotional, soul deep. You begin to notice your patterns, the type of person you're drawn to, the roles you play, and you stop blaming them for not loving you right. Because now you're learning to love yourself right. You no longer crave the highs of projection. You crave the quiet knowing, I am enough as I am. That's when love transforms. It's no longer about finding the one. It's about becoming someone who doesn't lose themselves in the process. You don't chase someone who fits a fantasy. You choose someone who honors your truth. Real love is eye contact, not idol worship. It's acceptance, not addiction. It's presence, not projection. And once you taste that kind of love, there's no going back. You've awakened. And from this place, you won't settle for anything less than real. It sounds simple, but for so many of us, it's the hardest part because we were never really taught how to be with ourselves. We were taught how to impress, how to please, how to earn love by becoming who others needed us to be. But no one told us that love doesn't have to be a performance. So now, after all the heartbreaks, after all the people who didn't see you, you begin the return. Not to who you were before them, but to who you were always meant to become. You start sitting with yourself, noticing the places you shrink to fit, recognizing the voices that tell you you're not enough, and gently silencing them. You build rituals, boundaries, joys that don't depend on someone else's validation. You stop looking for someone to complete you, because you're not a puzzle. You're a masterpiece in progress. And slowly, beautifully, the love you've been giving away so freely starts coming back to you. You laugh louder, breathe deeper, walk taller, and one day, without even trying, you attract someone not because you're filling their void, but because you filled your own. That kind of love, it doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with peace. And when you get there, you'll look back at every heartbreak and realize it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Every person who misunderstood you was pointing you back to yourself. Every illusion that fell apart was clearing space for something real. And now finally, you are ready to love, not to escape yourself, but to expand with someone else. It was always about discovering the hidden parts of yourself. Through them, through loss, through every moment that cracked you open and made you feel too much. They came into your life not to complete you, but to reveal you. The truth is, people fall in love with you for reasons that often have nothing to do with you. You represent something they lack. You awaken something they forgot. You mirror something they haven't yet healed. And that's okay, because every soul that crossed your path, no matter how painful, played their part. They were never random. They were mirrors, messengers, catalysts. They didn't stay because they weren't meant to, but what they left you with is you, more whole, more awake, more ready to love without illusions. So now, when someone enters your life, you'll meet them not with desperate hope, but with presence, with eyes wide open, with a heart no longer begging to be seen, but ready to truly see. And that's when love becomes something different. Not a rescue, not a high, but a sacred meeting between two souls who are already whole. So if you're healing, keep going. If you're searching, start within. If you're waiting, don't. Become the person you've been hoping to find, because the love you're searching for has always been waiting for you to come home to yourself.